Hello, I'm Benjamin Coy, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
And I'm Erin Palmer, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
Joining us is Valerie. Welcome.
Hi, great to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us, Valerie. And before we talk about Not Bored in DC, can you tell our viewers a little bit about your background and who you are?
Sure. So my name is Valerie Moore. I've lived in DC for 16 years at this point, and I just love kind of getting to know the city. And I think a big part of that is knowing what the city was before. So I like to do things to know, eat, and do in DC. So that includes history, just fun things to do around the city or events, as well as like restaurants and bars.
How cool. Well, please share with our viewers how and why you started Not Bored in DC.
Sure. So it started like every good thing does in the group chat, and I would just send my friends voice notes on interesting facts about DC. And they were interested in them. So I started posting them on TikTok and doing little like green screens or voiceovers of some videos. And I thought, well, enough people are interested in it, and I don't see anything else really in the same vein on social media. I might as well give it a shot and see how it goes. So I've been able to build a community off of that, and I just love that I'm able to share all the weird stuff that I've accumulated over the years, and people are interested.
Well, tell us a little bit more about the weird stuff and how you decide what areas you'll focus on and the things that you talk about.
Yeah, I wish that there was like a really great process that I have in place, but it's really just whatever is catching my interest, and usually for an extended period of time. So I love just finding something. It's usually on a map. I'll look at an old map and I'll find something weird on it, like a neighborhood called Cowtown, or there being a canal through the middle of the city, and then I'll just kind of dig deeper into that and find it that way. Or I'll hear about some event that I have no idea what would be involved, like the bus rodeo. And that just makes me want to know more about it. So, like, another thing I'm obsessed with is going to the bus rodeo. So, if anyone from WMATA wants to invite me next year, I would love to go.
Well, I
Awesome.
have to ask, what is the bus rodeo?
Yeah, they have different events, and it's all the bus drivers from, in our case, DC, but there is an international one that the winners go to, and they go through different tests, different challenges, kind of like a rodeo, but a bit slower pace. So they have, going through a chute that slowly gets smaller and smaller and doing like turns and stuff. And it happens in Landover every year, and it's open to like the Metro employees and their family. So unfortunately, I've never gotten to go, but I would love to see it in person.
Wow, wow. So you mentioned briefly about just the community that you found on social media. I'm interested in what type of feedback have you received since you started Not Bored in DC?
A lot of it has been really positive, but I mean, it is the internet, so you kind of get what you get sometimes. So it really depends video by video. The one about becoming a bark ranger, your dog can become what's known as a bark ranger at national parks, and each national park is a little bit different. Rock Creek Park just started their program in October. Great Falls on the Virginia side has one as well. And so I took my dog and I got him to become a bark ranger, and people love that. That was all good feelings. People were really excited and wanted to go do it themselves. And that's something I really love, is encouraging people and inspiring them to like actually get out and explore and do things on their own. So that is the kind of stuff that I really like to hear about from people who see my stuff.
Valerie, what are some of the other things that are your favorite things that you've learned or experienced as part of Not Bored in DC?
Yeah, so I like to joke with my friends, which is kind of a joke, but not really, that this is like my midlife crisis. And I never kind of expected that I would be able to find people who are interested in me in social media, if that makes sense. Like I always picture that as like a 21-year-old thing. So it's been interesting to see that just people are interested in a breadth of content. It doesn't need to be like what everyone else is looking at and everyone else is doing. It can be whatever you want it to be, because you'll find other people who are interested in the same things. I think that's like my biggest takeaway. So people also connect on different levels. You know, some people connect to me because my dog is adorable, as you can see here. But there's always like something that will relate you to someone else that you've never met before, but that can really like end up bringing you together.
So tell us, this picture was, I'm assuming, the Bark Ranger, and this image we have here. Tell us about some of the collaborators you've had and people you've worked with.
Sure, yeah. So I've been able to work with like Humane Rescue Alliance to promote their test drive program, which is where you get to bring a dog home with you for a week to either like test out if they'll work in your home for either fostering or long-term adopting. I really liked doing that. I fostered dogs in the past. My current dog is a foster fail. That was just something really sweet. And actually, this dog, Zahn, my parents ended up adopting. They came for Christmas and they met Zahn, and now they found the love of their life. So it was really good for Humane Rescue, and it was my Christmas present to my parents there as well. Um, and then I've also enjoyed being able to share like local restaurants, like this one in the middle is Ice and Slice. They do really unique things with their pizza. They do Ethiopian style pizza, and I really enjoy being able to just like increase sales at these small local businesses. That's part of why I started the Georgia Avenue Supper Club. Is like there are so many small restaurants, especially on Georgia Avenue, which is, I believe, the longest commercial stretch in all of DC. It has a ton of small family-run restaurants and businesses that don't have time for the marketing. They don't like they're behind the bar in the kitchen running everything. They don't have time to go on social media. So no one really knows about them. Reviews, if they get one bad review, that really badly impacts them more than like a Michelin star restaurant or anything like that. So I wanted to start this, which I had done previously with just my friends, of going to different restaurants along Georgia Avenue, not reading the reviews and kind of like going in blind and having a new experience. And I kind of think that that's running the kind of theme running through a lot of what I do, is just like being completely open-minded, making up your own mind about things and trying new things to see what actually speaks to you.
So Valerie, you mentioned earlier about finding out about Cowtown, and so we have this picture here. Tell us a little bit more about Cowtown and what is it?
Sure. So I found out about it. I was on not even Google Maps, like Microsoft Bing Maps, which no one goes on. But I was on there, and they had some neighborhood defined on there called Cowtown, and I had never heard of that before. It was around what people know as like Pleasant Plains. So I started looking into it, and there wasn't a ton of information about it but it was part of what was then Washington County. So up until 1871, there was Washington City up until Boundary Road, or what's now Florida Avenue. And then beyond that was Washington County. And in the county, you could have farm animals going free. So in Cowtown, which is like Pleasant Plains, this is shot from Howard University, looking southwest. So kind of like where the 930 Club is today would be in this photo, and you can kind of see Vermont Avenue as well. And in this area north of today's Florida Avenue, this is where like the dairy farms were to serve the city, because we didn't have like the refrigeration technology that we have today. Everything was very local. So what you're seeing here, all of these fences and the grassland and everything, the different houses, these were farms, and they weren't terribly large farms. They were smaller, but they supplied the city with bulk. So you have them throughout kind of the county in different areas, but this was kind of like one of the bigger ones. And if you go back to like the census from like 1870 and even up until I think like 1880, you can see a lot of the people who lived in this area along Sherman Avenue and everything. They were dairymen, they were cow dealers, or they were kind of all of this stuff. So it's like a really unique area because you don't really think of like the area around Howard as farmland, but it was. And especially where like Banneker is now, that was kind of the heart of Cowtown. And I think probably why they chose that for Banneker because there used to be a creek running through there, so it would flood. So I think that's why it's a lot of fields and everything.
Fascinating. Valerie, you also have some insights into history related to the National Mall. Tell us more about this image.
Yes. So I used to work at the Library of Congress in a department that like helped researchers find material. So I was always looking at random things. And this was a photo that came up in one of my random pokings around. And it's from, they think 1863. So it's during like the height of the Civil War, and it shows the mall from the Capitol. And there are a lot of things I love about this photo because it really is kind of a step back in time, and it's a little bit unrecognizable today. But you see the water coming through. That is the Washington City Canal, which went from Constitution Avenue in front of the White House down between 7th and 6th Northwest, and then like onto the mall, and it went across and down towards the Anacostia. And at this point, it was more of like an open sewer than like a serviceable canal, but they had built it that way in L'Enfant's plans in order to like have like the top of the line transportation system. And it really kind of shaped how the city was built. When you look out to the mall, the thing that's kind of sticking out the most is the Smithsonian Castle, but we know it today as being kind of surrounded by all of these different museums and everything, but it really was kind of just on its lonesome by itself there. You can see behind it to the left is Independence Avenue. And so between now where Independence Avenue is and the castle are like the Smithsonian Gardens back there, the like manicured gardens. But that was really all that was on the mall. In front of that is an Army hospital for the Civil War veterans, or sorry, they weren't veterans at the time, for the Civil War soldiers, the Union soldiers in particular. And so they built the hospital, and you can see the hospital building is that white, I guess, stone building in front of the smaller, what almost looks like tents. And that was the main part of the hospital. And then the different kind of barrack looking parts were the different wards of the hospital. Now, this being like the most southern point of the Union at the time, this a lot of the really badly wounded soldiers were treated here because it was kind of like the first spot north. Of course, when I say that like the soldiers were treated here, it really was just the white soldiers. Any black soldiers were forced out into like the other hospitals, like Harewood hospitals, and even then they had to give up their beds for the white soldiers if there were enough of them. So it was not, you know, an equitable army at that time. You also have Maryland Avenue where the train tracks are. It's a little bit confusing because it looks like the road going diagonally to the hospital is also Maryland Avenue just because of how we orient ourselves, but the train tracks are Maryland Avenue, and then south to the left is the bridge over into Arlington. And like there's a lot to this photo. I could keep going forever. I don't want to bore everyone, but there's also like a very well-known house of ill repute that you can kind of see on there. It's kind of at the corner of Maryland and Independence there. It was one of the largest brothels in the city at the time. So there's just a ton going on here. And of course, the Washington Monument, faintly in the background against the Potomac River on its old shores.
This is there's so much in this tiny little image, and our producer Zara is asking about the Potomac River, and that it's located closer to the mall than it is now?
Yeah, so that is like, I think one of the more interesting things. If you look at a map of DC before it was planned out, it looks completely different now than it was back then. And part of that was that the Potomac River was much wider. Where the mall is now and in front of the White House was all the Potomac River, sorry, where the Washington Monument is, to the west of that and south of the White House, that's all the Potomac River at the time. They didn't build like West Potomac, East Potomac Park. They didn't build Haynes Point, any of that until the 1880s. And that was on what was like tidal flat. So it was very shallow at that point, and they just like they had to dredge the river because there was a lot of flooding going on, and for like ships to be able to go by. So they filled in all of that land with the soil from the river. And then they ended up planting like the cherry blossoms on that land. But at the same time, when they were talking about planting all the cherry blossoms, even when was that? The 1910s. The land was still very uneven. Like there were debates about like whether the land was even enough to even have the cherry blossoms survive because it was so rough at that point. So it was like what we know today as kind of the DC shoreline was completely different back then, and you had a much wider river.
Wow, this is so interesting. I am a fairly new resident of DC, so I feel like I just learned so much that I would not have gotten. So thank you for sharing that.
Of
That is
course.
so cool. So I'm interested now, going back to Not Bored in DC. So you have this following, you have this community of people that are looking more and more to get engaged. What are some of the goals and aspirations that you have for Not Bored in DC?
Yeah, that's a great question and something I'm trying to figure out, honestly. I want to continue to put on it like events, but on a smaller, more intimate scale. So like I mentioned about Georgia Avenue Supper Club, we've had some events this year, but really just starting this year, I'm trying to figure out kind of what people want to do and are interested in. So we did a historic home tour of like the Anderson House, which is like a Gilded Age mansion. We have another historic home tour this weekend and just different kind of things around the city and seeing what people like. But I don't know. I honestly I don't know that I'm comfortable with having like a large following. It's like it's fine how it is now. I'd be happy with just this amount forever. Uh, because I have never really like I don't want to be famous. I'm just a normal person. I don't want to do all that. That sounds exhausting. So I just want to like keep doing what I do. I want people stay interested. Maybe there are some opportunities for like some like sponsored content and stuff. I'm trying to write a bit more in a blog to like expand on things like that photo to give people more context that you can't really in videos, in the short form videos. But right now, I'm just kind of open to see where life takes me.
Well, this is a funny transition as we close out because we like to give our guests the opportunity to share how they can be found and people can learn about them so they can get more followers. So Valerie, please tell our viewers how they can learn more about you and what's upcoming, whether that's history, local small businesses, cute dogs, or something else.
Sure, yeah. So I am Not Bored in DC on socials. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram mainly, although there's a tiny little YouTube thing that I put stuff on occasionally. And then I also, like I mentioned, I have the blog, notboredindc.com. I'm also volunteering this year with the Petworth Porch Fest to help get kind of the word out about that. And it's the largest porch fest historically in DC. Last year we had over 180 bands. It's all free. So I hope people will enjoy going to that.
Awesome. Viewers, please look in the description below for links. Thank you, Valerie, for joining us. We are so excited to get engaged and continue to support. And yes.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
To those watching, Please follow Team Rayceen on social media and subscribe to the Team Rayceen YouTube channel.
Viewers, thank you for watching.